old buildings like in York, but we have warmth and we have love.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, that's right. In Lagos.
Yes.
Maybe the media can ask you a few questions.
And what is this for?
Just for publicity, I guess. That you came to San Fernando. Right, and what you think of the city so far. And that you also say I met the best mayor I've ever met in my life.
When's that happening?
You want to answer the questions? You want? You want to answer the questions?
I just... That's not.
You want to get Marcus' number?
No, just not.
You get it right?
No, I was just trying to put something. So we just wanted to, can you just tell us a little bit about your visit to Trinidad and Tobago? Is this your, what have you been doing and what, you know, just...
Do you want me to speak into the to the camera or to you?
It doesn't matter, you can speak
speak into the mic.
So this is my second visit to your lovely country, Trinidad and Tobago. I visited here in 2015 and I did come to San Fernando, and so this is my second visit here. I'm here because of the very long-standing partnership between the Diocese of Chelmsford, which is in the south of England, where I used to be the bishop, and the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago. So when I became Bishop of Chelmsford in 2010, Bishop Claude Berkeley became Bishop in 2011, and the link between the dioceses had sort of gone off the boil a bit. So somehow we made contact with each other, I can't quite remember how, and agreed that it would be good to try to rekindle the friendship between our dioceses. The Anglican Church is a worldwide communion of churches, but not just, I mean, the Christian faith is obviously a worldwide faith, but increasingly my own belief is that the challenges we face as a world will only be solved when we work together as a world. That we need each other, and the big challenge facing the world of climate change and climate emergency. We're going to have to work together to find ways forward. So anything that we can do to build friendship and partnership and collaboration across the world will be good for the human race, good for the earth, and also good for the church. So we rekindled this friendship, which meant I visited in 2015. Bishop Claude and people from here have visited England, and so we've just tried to develop this friendship. And we've discovered that we have much to learn from each other. At the heart of the Christian faith is the belief that we're all neighbours and that we're called to love our neighbour as ourselves. Now we normally perhaps think of neighbour rather literally, the person next door to us or the person we're with.
Distance.
But what I've discovered through this friendship is I now think of people in San Fernando, I think of people in Trinidad and Tobago as my neighbour, that I understand that your well-being is tied up with my well-being, that if there are problems in this country, well, those problems will affect the whole world. So we need to find ways of loving each other, of working together, of building friendship and collaboration. So now I'm the Archbishop of York, so I was made the 98th Archbishop of York 2.5 years ago during COVID, and as this weekend is the 200th anniversary of the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity in Port of Spain, well, I think Bishop Claude probably wanted the Archbishop of Canterbury to come. I think that's really what he would have liked, but that wasn't possible.
But aren't you the second highest position?
I am, yeah. So in the Church of England there are 2 archbishops, so I'm the other one. I'm the spare. And as I've been here before and Claude is a friend, then it was an obvious thing for me to come, this time representing the Church of England and the Anglican Communion for this very important anniversary.
If I may ask this question, given the prominence of the Anglican Church, particularly in the city of San Fernando over the years, and the contribution you have made to the development of San Fernando. There are so many things that you have done and contributed to it. Those who came before you. Is there a dwindling of membership in the Anglican Church in recent time?
Well, it's a mixed picture. So if you look at the Anglican communion worldwide, it's a growing communion. So in some parts of the world, it's growing quite rapidly in some parts of the world. In other parts of the world, it's declining. But the overall picture is one of growth. In fact, the average Anglican now would be probably a young woman in her early 20s in sub-Saharan Africa.
And in the Caribbean?
In the Caribbean, I think, I don't want to speak out of turn.
60 or what?
Yeah. So in the Caribbean, I think, like in England, we face challenges. But what I find in the churches I visit is life and commitment. So we shouldn't be complacent.
No. What I would say with other institutions, they are bringing in young, dynamic priests who are adapting to the trends of the time.
Yeah, I think that the church, the history of the church, has been a history of cultural adaptability. So, and that's the great challenge.
And culture as well.
You know, that's to be a cultural adaptability. So you have to adapt. The Christian faith itself doesn't change, but the way that we live it and express it does change in the many different cultures in which we find ourselves. So it's not for me to say what are the right answers for the church in Trinidad and Tobago, but I imagine it's about finding a way of expressing the faith within the culture.
I'm an Anglican, so I attended Anglican schools, and we sang hymns every morning against the light. And we sang those traditional British hymns that we would have sung as well.
Yeah.
What you see now in other churches is that they're more and more adapting to a local approach, using local music and local sound, using drums, which kind of infectious, and appeal to young people.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that where I see that happening across the world, because that's true of every church in every context, is that we need to find a way of expressing the faith within the culture that we find ourselves. When that happens, the church seems to be growing, seems to have relevance. So that will be a challenge for the Anglican Church here.
Will you have my support? As an Anglican?
Yeah. No, it is a challenge. I remember when I came to Trinidad in 2015, you know, I noticed that in some of the, not all the churches I went to, but in some of the churches I went to, I was here much longer for that visit, they were still singing traditional Victorian English hymns that we don't sing in England anymore. You know, we've left them behind because our culture has changed. And certainly in English churches where there will be a great diversity of ethnicity and cultures, that's reflected in the worship.
So in some churches they did Latin.
Yeah.
They did Latin.
Yeah. Well, for Anglicans, the equivalent of that would be the Book of Common Prayer. So the Book of Common Prayer is our core liturgical document. But again, I would say wherever I've seen the church growing, it's not that it's abandoned that tradition, but it's found a way of re-expressing it within the language of the culture. And that's for those who are anxious about this, I would say, actually you can read about this in the New Testament itself. In the New Testament itself, you discover a church that as it encounters a new culture, so it adapts. Not its beliefs, it adapts its expression.
I just wanted to ask, as part of your cultural adaptability you spoke about, is pan incorporated in your music in the church?
In England,
is there any?
In England, yes, it is. So in England, you would find we still cherish our traditions. We are British, and that is the way we are. So we still cherish our traditions. So if you came with me to York Minster, the cathedral church where I serve, you would find a beautiful organ, a robed choir. You'd discover an unchanging tradition that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. But I could take you to the church over the road, which is also Anglican, and there will be guitars and drums. They're both Anglican, but they are, and they both believe the same things, but they are expressing their beliefs in very different ways, and that appeals to different sorts of people. So, you know, we still need our traditions, and I hope in Trinidad and Tobago you won't let go of those traditions, because they will speak to people. But at the same time, I would encourage the church in Trinidad and Tobago to think about, are there, you know, the most obvious is the steel band. You know, everywhere I go in Trinidad, I encounter the beautiful music of the bands, and that needs to be incorporated into the life of the church.
I would have mentioned to you the name Canon Max Farquhar, who was the priest here from 1950 to 1968. The Canon Farquhar was important. The church was 16 years. And he was a visionary. He brought Miriam Makiba. She sang at the Anglican church. It was the first church that Stephen played in San Fernando was Max Farquhar. And so he was ahead of his time, thinking what was needed. But I will not go from the organ. There's something about the organ that is very sweet. And when you hear the organ in church, you know that's where it belongs. The organ and the church come together. So I will not advocate the organ. And that organ we have here in St. Paul's is been there for a long, long time. Just to get you straight what has been there. And it's history. So there's so much. There's the artwork. When that church was built, for instance, in 1961, there was a famous sculptor by the name of Ken Morris. And he has a mural on the wall at the top of the church that says, do not forget your past. It's a word to that effect. That's a word I'm trying to. And so Ken Morris said that he was inspired by the Bible. Do not forget your past. There's a dash and says press on. So when you go to the church, you look at it. When you look at that, it's a brass mural by our famous sculptor. So there's that artistic, creative side of the church, that art and the scripture and the Bible together. Ken Morris is no longer with us, but we just know what inspired him to do that mural with those words. Don't forget your past. Maybe it's a bit of a go across there you go. The Anglican church. Whatever you go, there's a brass mural.
I know it.
And what it means, don't forget your past, one press on. What it means, he said he was inspired by the Bible.
Well, a key biblical text is from the prologue to John's Gospel. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And that principle runs through the whole Christian faith. That the Christian faith is an enfleshed, embodied faith. Embodied obviously in the person of Jesus Christ, but also embodied in his followers, the church, also embodied in music, in art, in literature. These are the ways in which the Christian faith is often best expressed and communicated. And the church has always had a long tradition of supporting the arts, particularly the Anglican Church.
I'm involved with that. I also discovered in my research that there is a special chair that was designed for the mayor that is in that church that not used by the mayor. So I'm advocating that the next mayor will be able to use that chair. And it's inquire about that. Bishop, it was nice having you here in San Fernando.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you and your wife presence here.
Thank you.
Talk so many different things.
Thank you.
We can have lunch today.
Thank you. Thank you. Great.